Well, I mean, I think Killmonger from Black Panther represents black nationalism in like a very terrible way, where he wants to like kill white people, right? And like that's oh shit. I think that's like a really bad thing, and I don't like promoting black nationalism just as much as I don't like promoting white nationalism. Um, so like you understand that like I don't know, like you were defending Killmonger, and so do you believe that Killmonger has like black nationalist elements?
Um, yeah, like he was definitely like I'm not saying like he was like perfect and Jesus like God, but I think that like one of the you know I think his primary goal, and from what he was stating in the film was that he wanted to you know liberate oppressed peoples all over the world. I was like, right the fuck on, like right the fuck
I
on,
mean, okay,
and so.
like I agree with that, but what is his like how is he liberating oppressed people all over the world? Is he like trying to promote like different types of unions or like revolutions in which we can like try to like make sure that we can have like a state or something like that? Or what is the actions that he is taking to try to
Well,
liberate the world?
Well, the big I don't know like this all this about unions like they didn't get into that. In the
Oh,
film,
so what did he get into? What was his method of liberating the world? Is what I'm asking.
oh well, I mean I thought you didn't have you seen the film?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he wanted to use the weapons of Wakanda to try to like hurt white people in America. Like I'm pretty sure that was a huge concept. And then like
I mean that
that's
was
why
a
he
big
was the
part of it.
bad guy. Yeah, okay.
That was a big part of it. That was like
Yeah,
a
that was a
big
big
part
part
of
of
it.
it. Him trying to use the weapons of Wakanda to try to um like quote liberate the black people. But what he means by that is like a very black nationalist way of it and not in like a um and not a like multiculturalist way.
Yeah, I remember him saying that he wanted to liberate the oppressed peoples of the world. He didn't specify. I don't remember him specifying, like obviously black people were like the most,
I think he said
oppressed.
specifically like people like me who used to be in like where I grew up. I think he said something like
No,
that, and so you can assume
no,
like he means black people because I'm
oppressed.
pretty sure they
No,
showed.
oppressed.
I'm pretty sure a big part of the film was that they showed like his. They showed like him when he was younger, when he was hanging around a bunch of like black people who were all like in poverty on the street. I'm pretty sure that like the point was that he was trying to be a very black nationalist character. I don't think he was trying to liberate all oppressed people. And if liberating, even if he is trying to, it's not just black people, it's any oppressed group. Even if he is doing that, I still think that killing people and like just for the sake of like hating the other side isn't a good way of going about this.
Well, I mean, it's just. I mean, like, what other way was he supposed to do this? I mean, that's my whole point is that he was right for the way he was trying to do it.
No,
When
he
he was in
wasn't.
the when
No.
he was in the museum,
Do you think the ends
he actually
justify the
he told
means?
he said to the
Can you
lady,
not
like, hey,
interrupt me,
how did
dude?
you? I'm talking. Excuse me, you're
No,
interrupting
no.
me.
You interrupted me, dude.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no. All right, go ahead.
Okay,
And
thank
yeah,
you.
and we'll see.
Okay, thank you. Do you actually think that Killmonger in the movie was trying to like yeah. Do you think that Killmonger in the movie, even if he was trying to like, make all these like oppressed people, like killing people is not the way to go around that, Like we can do other things and like the fact that he wanted to use weapons to try to like destroy oppressors when these oppressors are just like quote unquote oppressors. These oppressors are just white individual people instead of like the systemic whiteness that holds down like different groups of people in our society. Like a like in a academic term, not in like a like not in a very like individualist sense, but he was very for the individual. Like he wanted to try to liberate all black people, and what that means is, or liberate the oppressed minorities. You can say whatever that is, but what they're meaning is they want to kill the oppressors, quote unquote, which through all throughout the movie, from when they called like the white person, I think they called him like colonizers or something. Like And like I'm not criticizing that, but obviously when they're saying like oppressors and colonizers and these words that they're using, they're referring to the white people in the movie. There was very few white people in the movie, but whenever they were around, they always called them like colonizers, oppressors. Like I'm pretty sure when he's saying like the oppressed people, he's not meaning like, oh yeah, every single oppressed person. I'm pretty sure he's meaning black, which is why I'm calling him a black nationalist, especially since that was his violent ideology. Do you understand that like it's pretty obvious that in the film that when they were saying oppressed people, they were meaning black people?
Okay, can I just kind of respond now?
Yeah, that's why I paused.
Well, all right. Well, first thing before I answer your question, the the pronoun debate has been started. Do you want to just jump into that, or like, because I want to hear, I want to hear this.
I don't know if I can talk about it. Like I wanted to talk to the mods. I know they said I could have a chance to speak. I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah,
not if
I want to answer. Like,
I honestly don't want to get into that because I don't want to have to deal with that type of shit.
okay, well, listen, I would like send me a message or anything. Because like I like
Oh,
talking
you're
about
gonna
this
go?
stuff. Yeah, I really want to hear this, but
Okay.
I also, this debate, this conversation we're having is cool, and we can pick up on this one like later on if you want to. All
Okay. Have fun. See ya, buddy.
right, all right.
What's up, one poke?
Sure.
How do
Yeah.
you feel about
Okay.
trans people?
How do I feel about trans people? Oh boy, here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Here we
This
go.
conversation. Because nowadays I feel like everything with abortion, trans is all in the same group because they all,
Is
and
it?
same with feminism. Like, no, it's more in the sense of like when you would go somewhere trying to defend baby or like, pro-life and you're going somewhere, there's always going to be someone who's going to show up with a trans flag and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, what does that have to do with that? So I feel like nowadays with the movements, it's more intertwined. You know what I mean?
I mean that is a result of third wave feminism, which I do support. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What is, enlighten me, because I do know that there's a new form of feminism who's not really the same as the original
okay,
founded
yeah,
one.
people do not know the differences. So first wave feminism was mainly like, let's get the rights to vote. Let's get like rights and be legally recognized as people, right? Second
Sure,
wave
yeah.
feminism was so it was in the spirit. I think second wave feminists I do not agree with if they're current second wave feminists, but at the time I understand why it was like important. But basically, it's more about like, well, the patriarchy, they're trying to like they're trying to change like the way we do things, and like they control all our lives, which was true back in the day. They very much did control their lives. You know, if you're a woman, you had to be married to a man, and you could not escape that life unless they were like killed. And like there is a lot of like I know there was like this book.
What country are you talking about? Because the Netherlands never had that stuff happen.
Oh, America. This was a thing in America for a while. Like women had to be by men's side, and then there are some other like waves of feminism, and like it really depends on where you are. So
Okay. Sure.
yeah, and then third wave feminism is the intersectionality. So this is where I usually like to reside, and this is usually what I like to support. And it's more like, okay, well, sure, it's like being a woman has its disadvantages. However, if you are like a black woman, this has even more disadvantages because of the way black women are seen in society. Because like we might see women specifically
So
in
it's
society, but
moving
black
more away
women
from
might have
women, but it's more more going towards inequalities in general.
yeah, and how these different identities intersect into different types of things. So, like, for example, a gay person might be, like, pretty discriminated against, depending on where you are, right? However, a black gay person, knowing how, like, black communities are in some places towards gay people, it can be even more toxic. And so this is why it's really, like, harmful towards, like, black trans women and that type of stuff. And then fourth wave feminism is usually, like,
I wouldn't
Twitter
like to immediately
canceling
go
and
towards
stuff.
a race because it more has to do with the culture and the groups of people, and that it so happens to be with around the black communities. But I would not associate immediately with the colors. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because again, being a black trans woman in a black community, would probably be as hard as being a white trans woman in the black community. It's just the people around you that, you know.
Well, it really depends, because maybe like those people don't see. And I know, like, I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, it really just depends. Like, it depends on where you are. Obviously, like a black trans woman in Missouri is going to be a lot different than a black trans woman in California, and like a black trans woman in like Georgia or Florida. All these places are going to be different. Maryland, Detroit.
It isn't. I wouldn't necessarily immediately put on black, white, that sort of stuff. I would say it is really just dependent on the person and their culture, you know.
Well, yeah, everything's depending on the culture.
Because a black community in New York might be completely different towards a great gay person than a black community in another part of America, you know.
Sure.
So associated with gender politics, all that sort of stuff, I don't like. Racial politics, I don't really agree with.
Okay, I mean, I think in general it is,
because again,
like,
you're going completely against what Martin Luther King wanted, because he didn't want.
I really hate Martin Luther King arguments, because a lot of people don't realize that like Martin Luther King was very unpopular and honestly, and advocated for riots and advocated for political violence and advocated for black revelation. No, near the beginning as well. And like, yeah, he advocated for a lot of these different concepts, and many people fucking hated Martin Luther King Jr., but now everyone just says it as like a weird virtue signal, I feel like.
But more talking about the thing of a world where you don't get judged by the color of your skin, Yeah. So it's like, why do you still keep doing that? Wouldn't you want to get rid of that?
Well, in the long term, you would want to get rid of it. However, I think it is important to understand different dynamics as we see them. So, for example, like I might consider myself, under circumstances, a gender abolitionist. However, I think it is important to understand our concepts of like socially defined genders, and to see like, hey, these people are treated differently because of the way our society sees it. Now, under like an ideal society, I would think that like we need to, it would be good if we could like, there would be no difference between like this type of things. But however, right now, people see there is a difference, and so that means there is a difference, and it matters, and we need to recognize that difference. And so that's how I feel towards like race issues, because like I personally would love to live in a world where there is no difference between black and white people. Sadly, we live in that world where there is actually exactly, like in reality, we do care if someone is black or white. So I don't think we can just.
There is a difference, and that difference is the same with women and men. There's always going to be inherently a difference. The
difference is not because of like. Do you believe in like biological essentialism of like? Do you think like black people are just that way because of like biology, or do you think maybe it has to do with like systems that were put into place a long time ago and have carried on throughout culture, and I'm not
talking about social status or social like reasoning or social places. I'm talking about just a person. A black person is inherently biologically different than a white person, and the same as an Asian person is biologically different. How? Well, you look already at the skin color. There is a biological difference there.
Okay. I understand that you can tell the difference between different types of people.
Sure.
That some of the statements that you're saying, maybe you're not in like an American like lens. You said you're from like Denmark, Norway.
Somewhat like that, yeah.
Okay. Where are you from again?
The Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay, sorry. Holy shit. Some place up there in Europe. All those fucking Europeans.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, so like, maybe this is just like a cultural misunderstanding. I think when people use the language of like, there is an essential difference between black and white people. Like, I mean, obviously, thank you, Captain Obvious, for saying like, there is the difference between black and white people is one is black and the other one is white. Like, of course. But when people say there's a difference between black and white people, this is usually like, kind of like a dog whistle like thing towards maybe some type of like racial or biological essentialism, where they say like, oh yeah, well black people's skull shapes are smaller and therefore they're less smart and they have the warrior gene or things like that, like this can lead to that type of thing. So that's why I usually try to like
Yeah, but it's
that type of
also just
language.
has to do. For example, you have it from both sides. There are studies and there are things which say that the genetics of black people averagely give them a lower IQ, but that doesn't mean that there aren't smart black people. It's just that averagely speaking, the genetics make it for the brain makeup,
Do they
the brain
prove that
gases
the
or whatever.
genetics? Do they have like the IQ
Asian
genetics that they
people,
looked at?
Asian people have a smarter general
It's
IQ than white people, and that's just to do with genetics.
how do we know
But
it's
for
due to
example,
genetics? Do you have a study of that?
and there are many studies of that, I believe.
Okay,
But I'm not talking
I've
about
looked at a
there
lot
are
of these
different
studies. I've looked at a
there are
lot of these studies.
differences. But I'm saying that's
I
what one
understand.
side, for example, is saying. But
Uh,
there are also, for example, black people right now who say from the left, they say that black people are more social and more have the bro bond because of some biological difference in their brain in comparison to white people. Therefore, black people have more soul than white people. That's what some other people say
no,
again. So they also acknowledge that there's a biological difference in there.
buddy. Okay. Um,
So I'm just
but
saying
no
that I'm
one's
not saying
saying,
if it's correct
dude.
or
Can I
not. I'm
talk?
just saying there are people. I just want to make myself clear for now. Like I'm not saying that I agree with this or I believe it's right or not. I'm saying from both sides there are people saying that there are biological differences.
No, you are saying that. Okay. If you
No, I'm saying
say,
people said that. I'm just
oh,
repeating
okay,
what some
okay.
people
Like,
said.
so why would you say that? Like, I don't
Because I'm
know.
saying I
Some
just said
people think. I mean,
yeah.
look. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, right? Some people think all people who are white should be killed. Some people think that, you know? Some people think everyone from the Netherlands is a fucking racist. Okay, some people believe that. Some people have looked at studies in which they've shown that like there's a lot of racism in like the Netherlands and there's a lot of like hatred in the Netherlands. And like you know, I'm not agreeing with them. But you know, some people. Do you understand what you're doing here?
No, but I'm talking about that there are studies of many things
Okay,
about that there are
those
biological
studies.
differences.
So if they say there's a biological difference, I will almost always reject those studies unless there is some part of the study that says like, hey, we have seen this gene here in their genetics. We have seen this type of gene that shows this. This is like the IQ gene, right? Like I don't think
Mm-hmm.
any of these studies have shown that. They've just shown correlations between race and IQ. Now they've not actually shown that like there is so basically there's two parts to a study. There is the data and then the interpretation. The data is pure like data collection, right? And they can prove through statistics and like different types of distribution measures that like black people might have a lower IQ than white people on average, right? However, then we get to the interpretation, and this, if there's no like evidence for the interpretation, this can mean something entirely different, and it can be disproved in academia in many different ways. There is no, like, as far as I understand, there's no IQ gene that you can point out that's like the IQ gene that helps people understand like race and IQ. Like, however, I think a more like scientifically correct argument to these types of studies is that you know, maybe these people are grow up in a different type of like educational system on average,
Well, but
and
that's a different thing. IQ is the potential on how to get how smart you can get. So how easy you are able to learn things. IQ is
can I finish?
mostly highly influenced by genetic
I let you
factors.
finish. Can I finish? Okay. Anyways, yeah. So I have not seen any evidence that shows that IQ is highly influenced by genetic factors. Even if you find, so there's a huge thing in statistics right now. I'm taking like a lot of statistics classes and stuff. Like there's a huge thing, which says correlation does not equal causation. I think you've probably heard of this. You see that when you have like for example, there's a pretty like famous study that shows that ice cream sales actually correlate. Like if you have a lot of ice cream sales, you actually usually have a lot of murderers in the area. Now, does this mean that like ice cream sellers are trying to sell to like murderers? No, this means that they actually looked into it and oh look, they both happen in the summer. You know, there's more murderers in the summer. There's more ice cream sales in the summer. And so there's sometimes a third factor. Sometimes they're just randomly correlated. I think there's something like a correlation between like cheese consumption and like suicide rate or something. But that doesn't mean like cheese makes people suicidal. There might be a correlation between race and IQ. This doesn't mean that people on this is like a biological thing if like their parents have the similar thing. There's also a concept in which like people of like IQ as a terms of like biology versus like cultural means. It's pretty hard to tell because you could say, well, it came from the parents, but yeah, well, culture passes down. Like it might have came from the parents. However, your culture and that you're in came from your parents as well. So like it's hard to tell which was actually genetic, which was cultural. And if there's no like gene that they're pointing to, I would try to like assume that it's going to be cultural.
22 genes, actually.
Wait, when did I specify the number of genes? I was just
No,
asking.
I'm just saying, because you're saying there's no gene. I'm saying there are actually 22 genes that they point
No,
to.
they point to 22 different genes that
Yeah.
show for IQ.
Yeah, the studies they've done
Alright,
is
let's
precise
see.
enough to determine that there are at least 22 specific genes related to intelligence. Like, of course, it doesn't determine the outcome and how they're gonna be. It's just you have more benefit of your brain, but it's still up to you to use them as much as you can. Because somebody who has a lot of good genes to have a high IQ or high intelligence doesn't mean that they are going to be smart if they don't use it. They have a benefit, sure, but it doesn't mean that they are going to be,
Okay.
the best outcome.
So I have a question.
I'm not saying that black people are not smart or whatever. I'm just saying there is a difference in IQ. At least some studies say this.
I hate this type of shit. Okay. Please own what you were saying. Okay. What are you saying? Like, are you just saying this study exists and that's it? I mean, I think that like there's a lot of there's some studies that exist that actually show that white people in that despite being like 59% of the population or so, they actually commit over 90% of like the sexual exploitation crimes amongst children. Now that's just another fact, just like maybe there's some type of like race IQ like difference. But what are we actually saying? What's our prescriptive statement? Because right now we're just making descriptive statements. So what do you think we should do about this?
I'm saying that there is a biological difference between.
What are you saying we should do about this? I don't care what there is. Like, I mean,
what should we do about it? We should at least acknowledge that there are differences.
Acknowledge that there are differences.
The same.
Okay, so wait. So not say everybody is the same. So are we gonna like put that into law? Are we gonna like ban people from Twitter? So what do you want to do about it? Are you just going to say that, I'm going to now say that they are not the same because there are IQ differences and that's it? Like.
No, but for example, what you see is but for example, take it to men and women instead of all those different races we have. Take it to men and women. I mean, genetically,
there's all those different genders we have.
What make it easy for now? Okay, biological talking about because they're not biological.
There actually are a lot of not genders but sexes. There are around I believe like 13 sexes.
Okay, which one, for example?
Well, so I don't remember the exact like scientific term. However, so sex is a combination between your genitals, your hormone production, your secondary sex characteristics, your like other genitals that there's like the part 1 of genitals, part 2 of genitals, your secondary sex characteristics, your hormone production, and all of these different things. Oh, and your chromosomes, right? All these different things can intertwine in different ways. So, like, there are sexes of people that exist who have a vagina, testes, testosterone, XX chromosomes, and
intersex.
That's the general category. However, like we categorize people just as we categorize brown people to like Mexican and black.
Sure, but again, if somebody has an XXY chromosome and therefore has man boobs and small testes, stuff like that, that doesn't and a micropenis, that doesn't immediately make them a different sex because mostly those people mostly those people still are more towards one side of the spectrum, like men or women. They're still very you can still clearly see what they are.
If you're only measuring men and women,
if you have people being born with 6 fingers, are we going to immediately teach that people are also born with 6 fingers?
Where did you get this talking point, by the way? I know everyone brings it up, but I have no idea where it comes from.
Because this is logical. Because just a small minority has a different function or a different mutation or something like that doesn't immediately make it that it is an official thing that we should teach them that people are like that's that is also a thing. We
You
of
know
course teach
what?
that is a
Yeah,
thing.
I agree. You know what? In schools, if there's like if a teacher is asked a question, hey teacher, let's say out of people that exist, are there like how many people just have 5 fingers on each hand, right? And if the teacher says all of them, I will heavily disagree with that teacher. There are, of course, people. Yeah, okay. So if we're talking about sexes that exist, we're not talking about which one's more common. We're not talking
No,
about
but
which
we're
one is like we're just talking about if they exist. Like, of course, people with like less
sure
than
they
three
exist, but
fingers
that's a
exist. Like
defunction
that doesn't matter. We're just talking about if they
mutation.
exist. We're
Oh,
talking about if they exist, not if they're like
okay,
a mutation or whatever. We're just talking
okay,
about if they exist, right?
but I already told you they always have most like towards one side, a man or a woman. You can clearly see what
If
they
you were
still are.
only defining what is a
Well,
man and a woman, then yeah, of course they're always going to look at one side if you
well,
look at it from that lens.
I
If
was
I
just
look at every
making.
race, if I look at every single race that we might socially define, and I say, well, this one, some people might call them Mexicans. However, they look more black than white people do. So those people are black. If I say that, like, of course, like, we can try to look at this identification system and we think, okay, maybe this identification system is used to try to have a sexual binary
So
instead
there are
of the
infinite
more
amount,
broader terms of like different types of things that make up sex. Because
so
there's
there
not
are
one thing,
infinite
right?
amount of sexes then.
Depending on like different types of combinations, I think it's like
But
if
everybody has a
we
unique combination. Like everybody, the one person might have a little bit more testosterone than the other. Does that really make them a different sex? No.
depending on how you define sex, it might be.
Yeah, but if we're gonna talk about definitions, but to come back to what I was trying to say
In a
with just
general,
making
wait,
it
wait, wait.
easy
I
for
just I
men and
just
women.
yesed that, dude.
Yeah, but to come back to the thing with like easy to make it easy, just men and women, if for a thingy, yeah.
If you
Just to
want
make it
to,
easy.
if you, it makes it easier for your small brain. Yeah, okay, we can do that.
No, it just makes it easy. The same as we talk about white and black, and we don't take into account any other race at that point. I'm talking just between two groups right now.
We can look through those two groups. I agree. It's okay. We can do
Sure.
that if you would like.
If you want to be politically correct, that's fine. Okay, two groups we want to talk about now: men and women. If
I
you're
do
going to
want to
say
be
that they are
politically correct.
inherently the same, if they are inherently the same, that and biologically the same, then you're just wrong there too.
Wait,
Again,
what do you mean biologically the same?
they're not.
Okay, what do you mean biologically the same? What are you
Well, not
talking
not
about?
only looking at the physical thing, but also, for example, women genetically, that's laid in their genetics and biology, they are more social. For example, if I
No,
would,
that's not laid in their biology. Like, what do you mean that's laid in, like,
okay,
social
what do we
aspects are laid in
see?
biology?
What do we see in a country like, for example, in the Scandinavian countries, whereas there's the most equality and the equality of opportunities and
Depending on
choices
which
they can make?
Scandinavian countries. Like, I know in Sweden, the women actually ask the men out, and they are supposed to be the ones that initiate the conversation, while the men are a little less like they're more shy when it comes to different types of relationships. I know in Tibet, where we have like a matriarchy, a lot of the women are like the head of the household, where the subservient men have to like act in accordance, in which like a woman will have multiple husbands, but like a man has to be subservient to his
But
wife or whatever. Like there are
talking
different
about,
types
for
of
example,
there
this
there are
the
different
countries
types
where
of
there's the
societies.
most
Can I
equality of
finish? Can I
opportunity.
finish?
You
Can I
interrupted me
finish?
now, but I want
Yeah,
I
I
wanted to
didn't
finish this
interrupt you.
first.
You interrupted me, and then I kept talking. Okay, like that's not me interrupting you. That's you forcing your way into the point I was trying to
I
make.
was trying to explain the thing because you immediately came to what Scandinavian country, and I said, well, I didn't really think that.
In
But I was just,
regards to some, like Sweden, or is that Nordic?
that is Nordic.
Okay. Anyways, some countries. I don't know much about Scandinavian countries. I know some countries. I know Afghanistan even. They see
That's not
like
a
different types of like sexes differently. Where
Yeah, but that's not a
um,
country where there's so much equality of opportunities.
why does that matter? If
That
we're
doesn't
talking
matter
about
because what you see, for example, is that
genetic
women are more
differences.
likely to choose like care studies, like health, like for example, nursing, at schooling, teaching kids, all that sort of stuff, that's a woman
Yeah,
more likely to
if
choose that.
in a society where they all are likely to choose that, yes, I agree. Women are more likely to choose the thing that compares to their society. That's why I'm not just looking at Scandinavian countries. I'm looking at some Nordic countries. I'm looking at like is Afghanistan a Muslim country? I think it might be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all of
like
a
Muslim
Muslim
countries.
country.
I'm looking at like different types of territories in China. Like I might be looking at like Native American tribes because all of these different people are the exceptions that you're talking about. But like you only care if they're like Scandinavian. Like that's kind of weird when we're talking about like the essentialism of different types of sexes. Like if you're just talking about one type of group and how they like if you're just looking at one group and you're like, ooh, it seems like in this group everyone acts the same in this society, so that's true for all societies. That's not the case. There's many different societies with many different values. It's kind of
But
weird that you're doing that.
so you're saying that there's no difference between men and women genetically,
Um, I think in
and
some
that
ways
doesn't
there are
there,
obviously differences. Like on when we define men and women, it's kind of begging the question. So when we define men and women, men on average are going to have more testosterone and like more like less estrogen, and the men and women are going to have more
what does
estrogen
that
and less
lead to?
testosterone.
With more testosterone, more aggressive, you can be more aggressive when you have more testosterone, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, well,
So
that would make sense if in like Sweden or in Tibet or in like tribes of Hopi or in like different other like societies, if this was still the case. However, it's not the same everywhere, which seems like maybe it's not a biological thing unless you think like those people in those places are like different types of humans and they're not like
I'm not talking about just in where there's indoctrination, because sure, indeed, people can then change when that sort of thing. But I'm
indoctrination. Wait, that's
talking
called culture. You're talking about culture.
depends on how much force it is upon people.
Wait, all
Because, for
culture is forced
example,
upon
in the
people.
Islamic countries, it's like you cannot do this, otherwise you'll get stoned to death.
Yeah, in America,
Of
we
course,
have
people are going to
similar
behave
things.
differently.
If you do this thing, you might get fired from your job, and you might get like destroyed in a society. If you do this, you will go to jail, even if it's like not like killing a person, right? Like if you
Sure.
say the N word on a like some type of social media platform, you will go to jail. You will be canceled. If you
You
have
won't go to
like
jail, but okay.
or not go to jail. You'll be banned off Twitter. If you're naked, you will go to jail. If you're naked in public in a lot of places.
Sure.
If you like, kill a person, in some places in America, we will poison you to death. Right? It depends on like just because in one place they stone people, that doesn't mean like we're any different. We like we poison people and we like send them on electrocution chairs and shit, and it's like, holy shit, that's pretty fucking cruel. Like, we do very similar things, and different cultures arrive at different things in different ways. Just because like one culture might be quote developed more than another one doesn't mean that there's like an essential biological difference between the two.
No, there's no difference between the two biologically, because both have this biology. Between, for example, the men and women, they still have the same biologies there.
Okay, so how do you
But
explain that how do you explain then the difference between like Scandinavian and Swedish men and women in society? How do you explain the differences?
how do I explain the differences between them?
Yeah, how would you explain the differences? How like it maybe in Scandinavian countries, I'm just gonna take your word for it. Maybe women are pretty like shy and they're less sociable, and then men are pretty like aggressive and stuff. But in
No,
like
I
Swedish
was talking
countries,
about the choices of study that they choose, that they are interested in. The interests completely differ from the groups.
yeah, like in a society, if you like benefit, or if you have women
Hmm.
at a very young age saying like, yeah, I want to be a cook, or I don't know whatever like women do there, but like, and I'm saying that because I don't know about
Okay.
Scandinavian culture. I don't know what women do in Scandinavian culture.
So
Like here, it would be maybe you're like the mother of the household. You're trying to do these things. If we tell kids from a young age they're going to do this and give them like dolls and stuff, and they play house and stuff like this, or they play doctor, or maybe women will want to be a doctor when they grow up, or maybe they'll want to be a mother.
okay, so you're just I kind of understand like what you're saying. You're saying that biology doesn't inflict on how a person acts or how a person is. That's all purely social.
A lot of the times it is social. Obviously, if you're
If
going
there
to
was
point
no
out,
social, so if there was no social influence, men and women would be exactly the same.
culturally, yeah.
So if there's no social and cultural influence, it would all be 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's no difference between men and women in society.
If you think that if you're wording that question in that way, yeah.
All right. I can disagree with that, but I
Okay.
think we should agree to disagree then, because you say that genetics or biology has nothing to do with how a person acts. It's purely cultural. That's fine.
I think it's majority cultural. I don't think it's like purely
It's,
like. Do you think it's purely genetic?
no, of course not. I
Okay.
say you have a genetic basis, and how that eventually shows is, of course, through culture.
Okay, I think it's majority through culture. Of course, at like some type of level, there's always going to be maybe like some type of biological difference. Maybe like some person has a like I don't know. It's actually really hard to tell. Because
No,
someone
there
might
is
have
the
a
biological
biological well, someone might have a biological difference to another person of being like having perfect pitch or something. And this might be a biological difference, but like they might not be interested in singing. Like this doesn't mean that like they need to go into that interest. And that doesn't mean that like influences their interests later.
Okay, so how you are in society has nothing to do with genetics.
I mean, if you really want to word it that way, after if you're gonna like strawman the position after we've already stated the caveats and all the other things I put up, then
Yeah, because at least like I want to know, because some people don't believe at all that there is an inherent difference between men and women besides culture.
Do you think I believe that? What do you think I would say?
Like you just said, like you don't think that biology influences. It's mostly social.
Mostly social. Does that mean all social?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
like
so I'm glad you could answer the question for yourself.
Some
then.
people do. Some people do.
Cool. I'm glad you could answer I'm glad you could answer the question for yourself then.
I just wanted to know like where you are on. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because at least you acknowledge that there is a difference, biological too.
A very minuscule difference, and I'm not even sure if that difference is a case. But I understand that could have a play on like some type of things. Yeah. All the caveats that I've already said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
All right. But you asked me first, like, the question about trans, or?
Yeah, I talked about trans people.
Yeah, so what was your question about that?
I don't know, what do you, I think we might heavily disagree here. Here's a hot take I say a lot, okay. I think it is transphobic for people to say, I never want to date a trans person. And like all throughout history. I think that trans women in most like trans women are not a set specific type of person. Trans women can be in many shapes and sizes and different forms.
Sure.
Trans women can have like penises, they can have vaginas, they can have like uteruses.
Some do biological, some do take hormonal therapy, some don't, some do.
Yeah, exactly. And so just boiling this down to trans women, I think could be very transphobic. And a lot of the times when people that disagree with this take, a lot of the times you like see like inner transphobia in what they're saying.
Okay.
So.
Can trans women have babies?
It's being worked on in Brazil. So in the future, I'm pretty sure in like 5 years it will be possible.
So that trans women who are biologically a man, they will be able to have babies?
Yes.
How?
I think they're doing some shit with like fish scales or something to like
Fish
try
scales.
to I don't know. There's some weird fucking shit going on in Brazil, but like I think they're using like
is the fantasy gonna come true to date a mermaid and have sex with her?
Yeah, trans women are now mermaids. Okay, that's actually how it works. No, I think they're I don't know. I think they're using some like
we have strayed further from human rights.
Hey, I don't know, dude. Some bitches want to be fucking mermaids. I think that's totally fucking fine.
But how is it? up to you to decide if someone's preference is right or wrong?
I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. I'm saying if it's
Oh, but you're
transphobic
saying
or
that's
not.
transphobic if they're. So you would say
If
if
their
somebody said
preference
my
is
preference.
against trans people, I think almost all the time that they're talking about this, it's because they have a dislike towards trans people. Because every
So-
reason that they give would be just the same reason for cis women, and if they're not consistent, they're pretty transphobic. That's
Okay, so what if for example, if you would say I would never date a black person because it's not my preference, would that immediately be racist?
So black people. This is kind of a different conversation in my opinion because I think there is an essential material difference between black women and white women. I still don't know about this. This is like one of the topics I'm kind of
Someone
exploring.
can find the one more prettier than the other, so like that can be a preference.
Well, yeah, of course, but that doesn't have to do with like that doesn't have to do with trans or cis women. Like, I don't think people can honestly, if you take like the ideal like passing cis woman and like passing trans woman, like if you take these two people, I don't think people can actually tell the difference. I'm actually making a study right now in which I think the highest score that someone got right was like 7.5. That's about it. The lowest has been like 2. Sure. Many people get right in the middle. If you want to take it, that might be an interesting thing that we could do.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like if there's a very well surgical take on a trans woman, you might not be able to tell the difference.
Maybe not even surgical. There can be a lot of like people who don't even have surgeries and they can look really passing. So.
Yeah, when you like just pass, of course, when you would look in the pants, it would of course be different. But
well, I mean,
just by I have seen, for example, very pretty transgender women. You know.
Yeah. So
like.
I don't think there's like a material inherent difference between trans women and cis women. So that's the difference.
They might not base their thing on saying I would never date them, because some men just want to have biological babies with the one that they are going to date in the future.
Yeah, so I would ask 2 questions. I would say, 1, if there was a trans woman who could have biological babies, would you want to, and they were attractive and all this, would you want to date them? And then 2, do you think, let's say there is a girl who is infertile, like naturally infertile, because this happens, you know, some cis women, they naturally just can't have children. And so for those people, would you not want to date them if you found that out? So those would be my 2 questions.
Okay, yeah, well, first, like with the one saying if they would be able to have babies is still not the same, since it's not it's not the natural, you know.
It's not the natural. What do you mean? I don't think. Wait, what's the difference between having?
It's not. It is still like biologically they're different, so it's not going to be the same if you have a biological woman giving birth to a baby.
How's it going to be different? If the womb is the same, then like how is the? I mean, both of them have them in the womb.
Same if it is placed in a body. That's not a natural womb that has been there.
Why does that matter?
Because for some people, why are you judging if somebody finds that to be mattering or not?
I think if that honestly matters to someone, and like they, I think they're actually just looking for like a I don't know, dude. It's really weird because. Obviously, there's going to be differences between trans women and cis women, but like these differences aren't things that come into play in like real life situations. So like obviously there might be some difference between like one way a woman gives birth and another way a woman gives birth, but this isn't like a difference just between trans women and cis women. This is a difference between all women. All women's vaginas are different. All women, like the way that and the time and the period and all this type of stuff.
But like they're natural to some. They're natural.
Why does it care if they're natural? This seems like
some people,
appeal to nature.
For some people, it does. Some people don't like it when they wouldn't date a woman who has breast implants, for example. That's a preference for someone.
I mean,
I don't feel like that is up to judgment to decide if that person is wrong or not for having a preference.
I mean, I hate this word preference because what you're saying is just I don't like these people. That's what you're saying. Like
no, you don't prefer that. You don't attract to that.
I don't. Okay, let's say I don't prefer to be around black people. Do you think that maybe
Well, if you don't prefer to be around black people, I don't really feel like that I can have a reason to ask you why, because it's your preference, and if that's based on racial things, that's kind of stupid. For example,
and would it be racist?
If I say Sina, if I, for example, say,
would it be racist?
I prefer white chocolate over dark chocolate.
So close.
You know? Like,
if you
is that
prefer
wrong?
it, okay. This is a difference between and so okay, we were so close. So in the white chocolate and dark chocolate example, in this example, you were saying, would you rather date this person or this person? At that point, it is like a like this or this, and I'm like, I guess like it really depends. Like I don't know, you can just like pick or whatever. And I don't think that's transphobic. I think it is transphobic when people will refuse to date a trans woman under any single circumstance, even though there is no difference between like a trans woman and a cis woman, and
There's
the
always
only
going to be a
difference.
difference.
Well, there's always going to be a difference between two women. Like,
There's always going to be a difference between a trans woman and a biological woman. There's always going to be a difference.
yeah, there's
there.
always going to be a difference between two women. Do you understand?
Sure, but between these two, there's a pretty big difference because all women,
The
even
big
if they have
difference is that,
differences,
like,
they still have inherently the same biological makeup, and they still naturally, for example, the vagina, they might be different sizes or shapes or whatever, but they're still all naturally developed there.
okay.
They're not man-made. Let's put it like
I
that.
have a hypothetical. Let's say
Sure.
let's say a woman was there is this woman and they were born with
Mhm.
a birth defect in which they cannot have children. And they
Sure.
were infertile.
Sure.
If a person thinks that it's not natural for trans women to do that, I think that let's say there's this girl who's infertile, and then they can have a surgery in which they can actually finally have kids. If they think no, that's not natural for them too, then I would agree.
But what
Then,
have you changed? What have you changed with the surgery? Because the
what if you
vagina and the womb
change?
were still there.
Well, both are man-made.
But the vagina and womb were still there. What have they done with the surgery is the question.
They changed the function and like the way that vagina works and like the uterus. They man-made it.
But the uterus was already there. What have they changed?
So it has to be. Oh my god! It feels like you're moving the goalpost a ton.
No,
Like, do you
I'm
understand?
trying to, because like there's a difference between creating a full new vagina that has never been intended to biologically be there.
Did you ever do like difference spotting?
For example, let me. For example, this with.
Do you ever do
plastic
difference
surgery,
spotting things when you were a kid? Like, do you ever look at the like which one of these is not like the other? It feels like you're really good at that, and you like don't understand what I'm saying.
No. I know what you're saying, but for example, plastic surgery.
Listen to it.
I do agree with plastic surgery to remake something. For example, you have a giant hole in your cheek that has been gotten there because of something that happened. I do believe that you can use plastic surgery to remake it how it was naturally intended.
Yeah, and if
I don't believe
someone
you should use plastic surgery to make something that was never inherently naturally intended to be there.
what does
as a
naturally
functioning
intended
body.
mean? I think it is
when it would
naturally
be, when
intended.
when it would be biologically no defects.
I think it's a biological defect when trans women are not born with the genitals that they prefer. That's a defect.
Well, for them it is because they're not their body is not born as a woman.
Yeah,
which
so
we would, of course,
they're
prefer,
correcting the defect, right?
Right? How is the defect? Your body was born as a man.
No,
socially,
your body. Yeah, and that's the defect. The defect is that your body was born as a man, but you are supposed to be a woman. That's the defect.
Well, that's a social defect that you think of.
No,
That's
it's
not
a biological defect. No, it's a biological one.
Biological defect. Your whole body is biologically a man.
Yeah, that's a defect. Some women
your
are born
gender
with
is
man
social.
bodies, and that's a defect, and we need to fix it. And if we can fix that defect, then we have fixed that defect that trans women have, and we have ended up, getting to a point
But I'm
where
talking about biologically, because it's a
yeah, it is
social thing being a
biological.
man or a woman. It's a gender. That's not biological.
Yeah, it doesn't match their like gender, right? That's a biological thing.
Their sex.
They're supposed to be a woman, but they are a man.
Biologically, they're supposed to become a man because their body's developing to be a man. Socially, they think that they are a woman.
No, they don't think they are. They are biologically a woman. Do you see what I'm doing here?
Are they?
Yes.
What's the difference between a man and a trans man biologically?
The difference is that one has a birth defect that makes their body a woman, but they are naturally a man.
What's the difference biologically? What's the defect?
The defect is that they were born as a woman.
So what does it make them being born as a woman?
The defect we call this biological defect, like you might call it like a trans man. You might call them like a trans man.
No, but biologically, you have a man and you have a trans woman. You know, like a man who thinks he's a woman. Does it like how? What is the difference between those two men in the beginning? You know.
Wait, what?
Okay, let me. That was a little bit word rephrasing. Sorry. You have a man who's born as a man,
Uh-huh.
biologically a man, gender man. You know, to
Okay.
say like that.
Sure.
And you have a biological man who's born biologically a man but gender woman. So
Okay.
they're trans. They want to become trans woman, right? What is
Well,
the biological
they
difference?
are a woman. They are a trans woman, right? Their gender
Okay.
is woman, and their
Okay.
biology was the defect. They had a defected biology, which made them a man.
But where biologically, what's the difference between those two men?
I mean, there might not be any differences that you can see.
So biologically, they're supposed to be a man then.
Well, biologically, they're supposed to be a woman. How do you... Okay, here, I want to ask you a question. How do you know that they are biologically supposed to be a man? How do you know that?
Because they're both born as a man.
What does born as a man mean?
Man.
What does born as a man mean?
We mostly look at that genetically.
What does that mean?
And the aspects that come developed out of the genetics.
What does that mean?
And they're made of DNA.
What is that? So the DNA? Do you mean like
penis,
chromosomes?
Having, yeah, because of course you're like born as a cell, like you have a cell that has certain DNA, and the DNA is a complete map on how the development's going to go.
Okay,
and
so
one way development is going to be more men, and the other is going to be more women, and that's how you make up a biological difference.
Okay, what is a defect?
What is a defect?
What is a biological defect?
Something that got along the way, a mutation that happened.
So what if the mutation was that they were supposed to be a woman, but that the mutation was that they are actually a man?
If they have XY, that's not a mutation, that's just a wrong egg coming in.
Yeah.
Or that's not a mutation, that's just a chance that just happened to go not the way you wanted it to go. That's not
Yeah. That's a defect. It defected.
No, that's not a defect. That's just...
Do you know the definition of defect? That's like, it is not to the original effect that you wanted to happen.
But you don't have any... You don't have... Like, when a sperm cell comes in, and it happens to be an XY, that's not a defect. That just happens to be there.
So, what is a defect? When it's not supposed to be there? How do we know if something is or is not supposed to be there?
When you, for example, have an XX, yes, and you therefore develop as a woman, and then there happens an accident or a mutation, therefore your womb...
How do you know if something is an accident or a mutation? How do you know that? How do you know it's just not supposed to be that way?
Because
like, we use words like supposed to.
And they are a woman, they are able to carry a kid.
So that means you were supposed to be a woman if you're able to carry a kid?
Biologically.
Okay, so if a man was born with a uterus, he was supposed to be a woman, and he should try to change to that to make sure he can have kids.
But that's, again, socially. Gender is social, right?
No. Okay, I'm talking about someone who was born with like a penis, has testes, has XY chromosomes, however they have a uterus. Does that mean that we should try to correct all of these defects in their body? Uterus? Yeah, they have a uterus. That is the example.
So they don't have an XY chromosome?
No, they have XY chromosomes.
But how do you then get a uterus?
There are people with XY chromosomes and uteruses.
No, they probably have some defect in the DNA there.
Oh, so they have a defect because you say it is? Like, okay, I don't understand your like difference between defect and like normal that's just supposed to happen. How do you know that there's a difference between what is normal, so what is like you're born and then that's just the way it's supposed to be? How do you know there's that, and how do you know the difference between that and a defect?
How do we know that people are supposed to be born with 5 fingers? Because there are people being born with 6 fingers. How do we know that 5 fingers is the normal standard?
Exactly. That's my question. How do you know?
Well, we know that it's normal because that's just how it naturally happens.
This is how it naturally happens? I'm pretty sure humans actually had 6 fingers beforehand. And the defect was that they had 5 fingers. And I think that the defect just naturally, like, there was like some weird natural selection shit where, like, I think that people with 5 fingers... they weren't as like good at like grabbing things, but like I guess they like looked more attractive or something. And then eventually the sixth finger ended up getting breeded out or something. And so I'm pretty sure the defect is actually 5 fingers. So like, how do you know one's a defect and one is like just normal?
Oh, I don't believe that people had 6 fingers in the past.
Wait, dude, I'm pretty sure that was a thing.
Hmm?
I'm gonna look it up.
Because if you're gonna believe in the evolution thing, then apes also have 5 fingers. So I don't think that you would say that they have 6 fingers in the past.
No, we used to have 6 fingers.
No.
Humans used to have 6 fingers. They were like a lot of the times. We actually used to have we used to have 6 fingers, and we used to actually and then it got bred out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was a thing.
Where does it? When did we have it? Because I cannot seem to find it.
I believe it was like a long fucking time ago.
No, but where? Like, because I cannot find like that we used. Just look up. We used to have 6 fingers? Question mark. I cannot find anything about it.
I believe I heard this as a anthropologist. Extra fingers and toes were revered in ancient cultures.
Because it's something from the Bible, but
based on the skeletal structures, extremities with extra fingers and toes. Importance in ancient culture. So I'm pretty sure what like anthropologists have seen is that like we actually used to have 6 fingers, and if this is the case, then 5 fingers is the defect. And now, so can we say everyone born with 5 fingers is like defected, or how do we know one's a defect or not? Let's even say hypothetically that we used to have 6 fingers. Let's say hypothetically then. Let's say hypothetically we used to have 6 fingers.
Sure.
Are we all defected because we have 5 fingers?
That's adaptation. That's not a defect. Again, because the biology of us.
How do you know something's an adaptation? Like you use these words, but
our biological makeup makes us to have this certain thing, and therefore that is the natural way our biology has made us to be. When your biology.
Do you understand the question I'm asking you? I feel like it's flying over your head.
I'm saying when you biologically have this makeup, that natural process, how that plays out, yeah.
So we're all defected, or like the word defect.
Sure.
The word defect. You are using these words like defect, and well, that's just normal, or these are just mutations. These are just adaptations, right? These words all mean different things, but they could all like practically mean the exact same thing. I'm saying, how do you know that a trans person was born male because that's how they were supposed to be, versus versus like they were born male because that's the mutation that they had? How do you know that? I don't think you can. That's my point.
When you get that DNA from when you're in the womb, and that makes you biologically become a male,
even though your brain is a female.
Your brain is still a male brain, still biologically
no, it's a female brain. We actually have seen studies.
Gender is a social construct. Remember.
We have all
being man or
just
female
because.
Is
what do you think a social construct is? Just curious.
That's the whole thing with gender. Being a man
curious.
or a woman is based on gender. That's
what do you think a social construct is? What do you think social construct means?
Well, the whole thing how you identify, for example, the gender thingy. How that's built in society, what socially you define yourself as, because you, for example, say that men and women is a social thing that is gender.
Okay,
it's not biology.
So what I meant by trans women have female brains is I am meaning that statistically in female brains in like females' brains we have different types of like difference. I think in like androgen values and like I think the hippocampus is like larger in specific areas, and I think like the amygdala is like I don't know, some shit like that. I read about it a long time ago. But like different parts of the brain are different based on like different types of like social and and like essentialism between like the two different genders. And it's shown that like these types of things that we would correlate to people
Mm-hmm.
that identify as women in society, who are cis, and then people who are trans who identify as women in society, these brains actually match up better
Mm-hmm.
than like a trans woman and a biological man. And so
Mm-hmm.
we might say that, hey, this person, just as sex is a social construct, just as money is, and just as cars, just as
Mm-hmm.
all these different things are social constructs, we can say that, hey, these different characteristics in which we try to correlate all together as being a social construct of like um, like all these things that we correlate to a female brain, and all these things that we correlate to like um, a male sex. We can see that these two things, if you have a female brain but you have a male sex, how is that not a defect in your sex? How do you know? How do you know that like your body isn't defected if you're gonna have a female brain?
So gender is not something socially its gender is based in biology.
You just said gender was a social construct.
No, but you're saying now it's based in biology because of the brain functions.
Gender is something that is socially constructed because the different so gender as a concept is like a thing that we cannot see. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that we have different definers towards, and
Mm-hmm.
we have like categories in which, okay, this is more like the female one and this is the male one, quote unquote, right? And
Sure.
these different types of groups we generally pair with one or the other, just
Mm-hmm.
because now these like different aspects in your brain that we pair to these different types of people, these aspects in your brain, they might be biological, they might be cultural, they might be any type of thing. I don't know if you could really point like to anything about that. I don't know any data that suggests that. I don't know any data that suggests like yeah, I don't know any data that suggests that type of thought. And
Mm-hmm.
so now that we see that gender, being a social construct, has different types of physical elements in your brain, doesn't mean it's biological, because I haven't seen any evidence, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can see that this thing is a. So then we can say, okay, well, they have like socially constructed female brains. And so
Mm-hmm.
why do the people that have female brains and have male bodies, why are these people not have male body defects?
Mm. Yeah, I get what
Why
you
do you
mean.
just not call them a defect? Because you're using the word defect as like it's not supposed to be there. It's like, well, if they have female brains, why, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
But would you would date men, or who would you?
Would I date men? I'm a lesbian, so I'd probably date women.
Okay, so you would date women.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you date men?
Um, there are pretty clear material things between like men and women, and also clear social and cultural differences between men and women. If we were living in a
Mm-hmm.
society, now, and these do not exist for trans women and cis women. However, if we lived
Mm-hmm.
in a society in which there was just feminine people and masculine people, and like some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
these may correlate to being a man. Like honestly, I do. Let's say there was a man who had a vagina, who was very feminine, and who wanted to have kids when they were older, and they and they were like pretty feminine. I thought they looked cute. Yeah, I would date that man. I don't think that any man we would reasonably say that like a man would have uh like would have a vagina and want to have kids. I'm pretty sure if someone identifies as a man, they usually don't want to have kids. Um,
Yeah.
so like, or like to be able to like birth children. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that men
But
usually
but
want to do
right,
that. But like,
for
I will
example.
be, I will be consistent. If all of the things that I want in a woman are present in a man, I would date that man.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So yeah,
But the thing is, there's always going to be a thing that in a woman is not presented in a transgender woman, for example.
no, there's wait. How do you know the difference? So we looked at this before. We're kind of going circles now.
Yeah, but no, okay.
We were going in circles.
Not to go into circles. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
So I will explain to you why we got onto the defect subject, because I said, well, what if someone was born without like a right uterus, and then they fixed the uterus, they fixed the problem. They're like, yeah, but that's a defect. And then so now if we accept that trans people being born into the wrong bodies is a defect, then they're just correcting a defect as well. So you shouldn't see any difference between two different women correcting their defects to have children. There shouldn't be any difference between those.
Okay.
Okay.
And what if you say that you would not date someone who cannot have kids naturally from themselves?
I don't like. Then you would
and
also
not women who cannot have babies.
If you would say that and you'd be consistent across both cis and trans women, and like all other categories, then I mean that's your type of want and need, that you think that these people, you want your partner to have like babies, but that doesn't have anything to do with trans or cis people.
What if someone says, I would not date women who are part of the LGBT groups? How would that be then? Would that be fine?
I think that is transphobic inherently.
Why is that transphobic? Somebody just doesn't agree with your way of life. That is transphobic.
If you don't like trans people,
would you date a Christian?
No, because I am Christianphobic.
You're Christianphobic.
Yep, I hate Christians.
So why are you judging people if they are transphobic?
Because I'm just stating you're transphobic.
Okay.
You don't like trans people if the reason you don't want to date trans people is because they're trans. Like, that is the definition of transphobic. I am Christianphobic because I don't want to date Christians.
You're manphobic too.
I'm manphobic?
Because you would not date men.
Well, that's not true. I said I would date men if they were...
only if they're feminine.
Yeah, if they were feminine. So, obviously, I don't hate men.
You are...
I know you're trying to attack me, dude. It's not gonna work.
I'm not, but I'm just trying to say, like, why is it then wrong for someone?
No, you are. That's why you're saying, well, then you are... that is trying to attack me and act. That is the point of what you're saying. You just own up to it. This entire conversation, you've not been owning up to this type of stuff.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. I've called it out. Go ahead and do it.
Because you said, only when they're feminine, so you are phobic against men who are not feminine.
I am phobic against men who are not feminine?
Yeah, I don't know a word for that.
Okay. It seems like okay, you're really trying with this, and I did just call you out for being ad hominem. But I think that we actually...
I was just trying to figure out, like, because then you are phobic against that, right?
If the reason I don't want to date a man is because he is masculine, and I don't like these masculine traits, then yeah, I would be like, if I inherently don't like men for that reason in a culture where like it's not like generally accepted and all that stuff, yeah, I would agree.
So you would be phobic against that then?
I know you did it. You did this before, dude. You did this before. Okay, let me explain. Wait. Oh my god, you do this all the time. Wait. Okay, so the previous time we had this conversation, you're like, okay, this is like if you're saying, so would you actually have like vanilla ice cream? I'm like, well, I would have vanilla ice cream if it was in a cone. Or like, oh, so you would have vanilla ice cream? Like, dude, I already said a caveat. Okay, if we take that caveat into place, yes, of course. Assuming all the caveats, they have already said yes.
But I don't feel like that is immediately being phobic against somebody, because do you hate masculine men? No, but okay, to come to the thing of like, because I don't feel like it's immediately phobic to be not willing to date a Christian. Do you hate Christians?
Yes.
Oh, you hate them?
Yes, okay, I hate Christians.
That would be phobic. Well,
yes, I am. I am Christianphobic. I have very much admitted that. Yeah.
But if you don't prefer to date someone with that mindset, doesn't really mean you're phobic against them, because you might not hate them. You might want to be friends with them. You would just not date them. That's really being phobic.
Maybe you can think so. I think if it's
I don't feel like phobia is immediately so big.
I think if the sole purpose I think if the sole purpose is that you don't want to date someone because of their identity, you do not like that identity. I think that's like almost like one-on-one correlation. That's like if I don't like popcorn, then I do not want to eat popcorn. That's like a one-on-one correlation to me. I don't know how you could say any different. I think we've gone down to
But
every
you
single
don't hate
logical
them as a
argument, and it seems like
person.
you're just trying to. It seems like you're just trying to move the goalpost now. You've moved it like
No,
three
but,
different
but you,
times.
you you don't like. I'm trying
I
to with
won
the
this, dude.
phobia thing right now. No, I'm trying to define the phobia right now because that's why the difference probably is. I don't think it's a phobia if you hate someone's or don't like someone's
What do you
belief.
think?
I don't
Okay,
think it's
what
a
do you think
phobia
transphobic
if you don't
is?
hate
Let's define it. What do you think transphobic means?
what I think we should have the definition for that.
If we're using the word and we're trying to figure out what it means, yeah, I think it's very important to the discussion.
Oh, what I just got? That's weird.
Wait, you think it's weird to define a word that you're
No,
trying to
no,
find the
I
definition
I
of?
just gotta um be like again here. Transphobia would be a dislike or prejudice against transsexual, transgender people.
Okay. If
That
you
I
don't
wouldn't
want to
date them
date them
doesn't
because
really
they're
mean
trans, if you don't want to date them because they're trans, that is a dislike towards trans people, right?
that is a not wanting to date them, but that doesn't mean that I hate those people and I
And
dislike those
wait.
people.
Does it
Doesn't mean
does it say you hate them, or does it say you have a disliking towards those people?
oh,
If you
I
don't want to
wouldn't
date
date a
someone
man doesn't
because they
mean
are
that I
trans, if you don't want to date someone because they are trans, that means that you do not like them because they are trans, and that means that you do not like the trans people. Like this is like 1-to-1, dude.
what? I don't like them to be dating me, but it doesn't mean I dislike them. It's for
Why
example
do
this.
you
I would not date
look?
men.
Look,
Doesn't
dude. Okay, if you have a type of bias against a specific group, then I think that like you are always going to view that group as differently. But once I have pointed out, like in this discussion, I've pointed out that all of these like trans women and cis women, there's like almost no difference between these two groups. And like if you're just pointing out differences, it seems like at some point you keep moving the goalpost. You've done it 3 different times, okay? And you've moved the goalpost all throughout this conversation. It seems like you really just don't like trans people. Like that's what it is, and that's fine. Okay, I don't, or like I wouldn't say it's fine. I would love for you to,
no, but, what
try
I
to figure
yes,
this out.
sure, but
I'm not trying to like fix your entire thing in this conversation, but like obviously like. And I even admitted the Christian thing. I'm like trying to be very consistent with everything,
sure,
and it
sure.
just
No,
seems
no,
like you
no. I
just don't
know,
get
but
it.
you dislike them overall. But the same as this, I would not date a
Yes,
man. Doesn't really mean that I dislike men in their complete. I would just not date a man. I
yeah,
can be friends with them.
because of some other reason. Why do you not want to date men?
Why would I not want to date men? Because they're men.
It's not because they're men. Okay, that's circular reasoning. Okay, it's because some other factor, right? What's the factor that men have that you don't like?
Biological factor, sure.
A biological factor of what? That they can't have kids? That maybe they have more like scruffy hair? That
sure, they have okay, sure, they cannot have kids.
Oh, okay. So that doesn't have to do if they're a man or not. It has to do with them not having kids. If you could have
Okay.
kids with a man, would you want to date a man? And then we can go down all these different types of things. And at some point, you'd probably be like, okay, I guess if a man was like feminine enough and all this other stuff, then yeah, I would actually I would not want to I would want to date a man. I would want to date a man in this instance if you were logically consistent. Now, I am saying the exact same thing as you, and I think that means that you're not like hateful towards men just because you don't want to date men in general, right?
But there's
And
no
then
difference with the defect definition. I don't think it's a. You can say if, for example, if you're biologically fully a man and you think that then you're a woman, that if you change your body, that you change the defect to be normal. I don't think, in my opinion, that doesn't work like that. You know.
well, wait,
But
what?
that's where the difference is. So
Wait, I'm confused. What did you say?
like you said with the defect
Oh,
thing,
fuck.
because like when you're as a biologically a man but you feel like you are a woman, therefore you want to change the defect to be a woman's body, yeah.
Yo, I gotta go. Someone's calling me. I'm
Oh,
really sorry.
all right,
I'm gonna see you later. Okay.
all right.
That's how you get out of conversations, boys. Holy shit. Can I add a um. Um, Yeah. So, holy shit, dude. What's up? Yeah, I just saw that conversation going in circles, and I didn't want to continue it anymore because, like, I think I expressed my point pretty well. That it's pretty obvious that like if you have these different exceptions, and this is the reason for those exceptions, it's based on those exceptions. It's not based on the identity. If it's based on the identity, then it's phobic of that identity. Like I think I expressed that pretty well. I really like that argument I made. The whole what was it? The like, how do you know it's a defect or not? I really like that one. That was a good argument. I feel like. I really like that one. It was a good one. Good one. Yeah, what's up, guys? What primate has 6 fingers? Sounds like a myth. I think I heard it from like somewhere, and so that's why I just changed it to a hypothetical. Does the Bible even say people have 6 fingers? I have no idea. Well, adaptations are just useful mutations. Yeah, exactly. So like one would say like it's useful, and then some people might say like, oh, it's useful in this sense, but in this sense it's a mutation, but in another sense it's actually just like it's not a mutation, and it's just a like it's a defect, and in this situation it's another thing and all that. Mutations that spread themselves would be better word than useful. Male is biological, but that's not sex and gender. Yeah, I understand that. I was just trying to for him to understand that like maybe the defect of trans people is that they are born in the wrong body. I tried to use that type of argument because I think that's the only way he could have understood that like that there's like no difference between cis and trans women when it comes to like natural or not, because he was using a naturalistic fallacy. So what I was trying to do was I was trying to say, okay, this is also a defect. So in that case, how do you know this is a defect? So I basically tried to break down the natural fallacy that he was going, and he ended up accepting that. And so I feel like that was a win in my part. I like called him out for doing the whole like moving the goalpost thing too. So I would say that gender is a social response to the perception of sexual dimorphism. That's a bunch of big words, dude. I'm really fucking tired. But that's partially based on the physiology of the brain. That doesn't mean it's partly biological. Yeah, I never said it was partly biological. I'm saying that like because of this, because this is how their brain will develop and can develop this way in the future. Is there a difference between that specific development in the future? Is there a difference between this development in the future, and is that development going to end up like being because of this development? Does that mean the development of them being like biologically a male or a female? Does that mean that will be like a defect? That phobic. Okay. Whew, that was a nice. I swear to God I wasn't born to fight. Maybe just a little bit, enough to make me sick of it. But I